We have seen about how to use normalizer transformation and how to use the rank transformation and also about the rank and the normalizer and these things. So in the today's class, we'll talk about how to invoke the stored procedure from Informatica and what is the use of stored procedure in the real time. So let's understand it. So what is the use of stored procedure and what is it called? So since we are using an Oracle database, let's say first we'll understand what is the use of PLSQL in the what is the use of PLSQL in the Informatica and what is the use of uh, stored procedures in the Informatica. So generally we know that whenever we want to do the bulk load, if you have indexes on the target table, then you'll not be able to load the data if you have the indexes on the target table. So in order to make the bulk load, first generally the design how it will be is that, so first we'll drop the indexes on the target table. So general design will be drop the indexes on the target table, then load the data into the target table, load the data into target table. So we'll define a different sessions and different mappings for all these and recreate the indexes, or the constraints also if you have, can drop it. So we'll define a separate mapping for dropping of the indexes, which will invoke the stored procedure. For this you'll have a session as S1 and load the data into the target, let's say mActual. You'll define a mapping called as a mActual, which is invokes the sActual, and then the recreate the indexes. Let's say you have a mapping 2 and then you'll have S2, which you call it as a recreate the indexes, ms2, and this is which will recreate the indexes. So dropping and recreating the indexes will help you to achieve the bulk mode. That's the reason we generally do that. So this kind of a scenario, this is the one scenario where you need a stored procedure to do that. And in the second scenario is that since whatever the fact tables and the dimension labels which you load will be used for analyzing of the data. So in order to perform the queries better, and generally we analyze the tables, So analyzing of the tables is nothing but analyzing of the table will help queries to perform the better. So whenever you want to analyze the tables, also we will use the stored procedure to do that. So whenever you need to perform such kind of an operations, here the PLSQL will come as an handy to that. So what is a PLSQL? So since we are using a Oracle database, I'm talking about the PLSQL language. PLSQL language is not applicable with other databases like SQL Server, Teradata and all, because the PLSQL will not work with the other databases. It works only with the Oracle database, and it is an Oracle proprietary language. Which is used. So whenever you are working with an Oracle database, you can write the PLSQL stored procedures to do that. So now I'm going to show you how to execute a sample stored procedure and how to invoke the stored procedure from Informatica. So you can invoke PLSQL stored procedure from Informatica and the TSQL stored procedure from Informatica or some other stored procedure, whatever it may be, you can execute it. So now in this example, we are going to see how a PLSQL stored procedure will be executed into this. So PLSQL stored procedure will be written for all these reasons. So whenever you want to analyze the table, whenever you want to drop the indexes and recreate the indexes, or whenever you want to truncate the tables, all these things, or whenever you want to truncate the tables, partitions. So all these things will be generally done by the PLSQL stored procedure. So I'm going to show you PLSQL is another extended SQL language which works with only with the Oracle database. Now I'll show you how I will create a stored procedure which will drop the indexes on the defined target table. which will drop the indexes on the defined target table, and we will see how we can do that. So let me just, we should be having one stored procedure here called as a drop indexes. So let me just edit this and then explain you what it is actually doing. So this is a plsql stored procedure which we have, which will drop the indexes whenever you pass the table name as an input, and then it will return you the error message. It will return you the error message based on that. If at all, while dropping the index, if it is having any error, then it will return the error message. So this is a sample stored procedure which I'll be mailing you, which you can compile it. So how to compile this stored procedure? This takes the table name as an input and it returns the error message if at all you have any error in using it. So let me just compile this stored procedure. I'll ping you the stored procedure. Similarly, in the TDBU schema, you can compile this stored procedure. In order to proceed with this hands-on lab. So let me just compile it. So how can you compile it? Just paste it in this one and then do the F9. Use F9, it will compile it. So in order to check whether it is successfully compiled or you are having any errors, right click on it, refresh the procedures, and then check. If you have any red color symbol or an invalidated symbol, that means the procedure is not compiled properly, else the procedure is compiled. Now we are going to, I'm not going into detail because this stored procedure, we should have a simple basics like how the plsql program works. So something about the cursors and all those things. So assume that there is a plsql stored procedure which is available in your database and you just want to invoke it. So that stored procedure will drop the indexes on a given target table based upon the table name provided. So let's see how it will drop the indexes, on this. Now I have a stored procedure called as a drop indexes, which drops the indexes on the table. So let me create a mapping which will drop the indexes for it. So edw, this is my working folder. Let me just log in, and here and in this hands-on lab we are also going to learn how the mapping parameter also will be passed from the parameter file. So I'm going to pass the table name dynamically from the session level, whenever I invoke that mapping. So I'll use it. So let me just open the mapping, and so I'm creating a dummy source here called as a dual, which will just have a table name. So dummy source. So there is no table called as a dummy. But I'm just creating a table dummy. So dummy table. So this is just an Oracle table. So just select Oracle table, and I'm creating the column name. Here as some table name. So we know we don't have any table called as a dummy, and we don't have anything. So I'm just creating the table name column here. I'm creating the table name column, which is I marked it as a 100, and this is a column name which I have provided in this. And the target table, I just want to create some dummy file. Whenever output is returned, error message is returned from the stored procedure, I just want to write into the target file. In the target designer, I'm creating some default error flat file, which is going to be a flat file, and I'll have only one column which will have an error message. Whenever a stored procedure returns an error, I want to write this onto this. Control F, error message, and the string of 1000 tick. So just applying and then click on OK. Now I'm going to use this source. This will return me the table name, and this table name I'll bring it as a parameter file. So let me just create a mapping which will drop the indexes by taking the table name from the input. So create a mapping. I'm calling this as a m underscore drop indexes, m underscore drop indexes. So click on OK. Now you have the source, OLTP source, which we have. So OLTP source which we have created, that is a dummy table. So just drag and drop the dummy table here. So now the next thing is to invoke the stored procedure transformation. So how do you invoke and how do you use a stored procedure transformation here? Go to the transformation tab and click on create, select the stored procedure transformation, and best practice is that always it should be sp underscore drop indexes, sp underscore drop indexes. So when you click on create, just like the way how you import the table, it will ask you to import the stored procedure as well. My stored procedure is available in the target schema. So I'm entering the schema name as a TDBU and then the TDBU as a password. TDBU as a password. Click on this TDBU, drop the indexes. So select the drop indexes and click on OK. Click on OK. Now, if you look at this stored procedure, you can easily understand what input it takes and what output it gives. It takes the table name as an input and then it passes the error message. So whenever this error message is not null, whenever the stored procedure returns the error message, I want to fail this session. I want to fail this session, or I want to abort this session saying that stored procedure has returned the error. So how can we do that? How can we do that? So to do that, I'm creating one expression transformation, which you can stop the session based upon the result from the error. So let me just create one expression called as drop indexes. So click on create and then done. So now you're going to use the error message here. So let me just mark this error message as this, and then I'm creating a output port. I'm creating an output port called as out underscore error message varchar2 of string of 4000. And when you use this here, whenever this error message from the stored procedure is null, I want to stop the session. So error if not is null of, one second, sorry, if not is null of this port p error message, if this port is not null, then stop the session saying that stored procedure has returned the error. Stored procedure has returned the error. So this, I'll use the error function. There is a function called as an error function, which this message will be thrown. Stored procedure has returned error. So what error it has returned? So you can just use p underscore error message, else the p underscore error message, that will be null. So validate it. Now whenever the stored procedure returns the value, it will stop the session. It will stop the session or it will fail the session. You can also abort it using the abort function. It will error out the session by returning that error. So default error flat file. I just want to write this dummy thing into this. Now what I'm doing, I'm reading the data from dummy source and then invoking a stored procedure. So drop indexes. So when you go to the properties here, you have a stored procedure name is drop index. Suppose if the stored procedure is a part of the package, then you need to prefix the package name dot the procedure name to invoke it. Package name dot the procedure name. Now how does a table name will be retrieved? So whenever you fire this, how the source query will be fired, if you're not writing any customized query, If you use generate SQL, this will be fired. But you don't have a table called as a dummy in your source or any target also, you don't have any dummy. So I'm just going to create one parameter here. So just like the way how we have done it in the 8th lab. So I'm creating a parameter called as a table name. I'm creating a parameter called as a table name. So this is a mapping parameter, and this value I'm going to pass it from the parameter file. This value I'm going to pass it from the parameter file. So string of 100, and just apply and click on OK. So now here I'm going to use that. How I'm going to retrieve the table name? How I'm going to retrieve the table name? So I'm going to retrieve it by using the parameter file. I'm going to retrieve it by using a parameter file name. So $$ table name. So this $$ table name, whatever the value that you pass, that will be replaced from the session level. So I'll use it as from dual. So we know that dual is a dummy table which will be available, which can be accessed by the any user within the database, within an Oracle database. So this $$ table name will be replaced based on the value from the session level, and this query will be fired to your database. This query will be fired to your database, and then this data will be retrieved. So just click on OK and then apply and click on this. So now this query will be fired and then this. So let me just generate a workflow for this. Yeah. So far, any questions here, please? Any confusion?
So Karthik, are we going to physically create the dummy file in the dummy table in the source SDB schema?
No, that is what I'm saying. We don't have a table at all of that kind. I've just created it in the Informatica. I don't have a table called as a dummy in my SDBU schema or in the TDBU schema. So when it is querying the data, it will use this query and then fire to the database, whatever the connection that you give in the session level. So you know that dual table is already available in Oracle, and you're passing a $$ table name. So I'll show you how the query will be fired. So this query can be executed in the database anywhere because the dual table is available. Any input, whatever you get executed, this will work. So I'm not using a dummy table. I know that a dummy table is not there. I just defined it for my convenience. That's it. So this table name, whatever you replace, that will be fired to the database. That's it.
Suppose in case of SQL server means we cannot use this query, right? We need to write different because dual is there is no keyword called dual in SQL server.
Yeah, maybe yes, true. Okay, so now generate the workflow. Now I'll pass that value table name from the parameter file. So this dummy thing is available in every schema. Any schema name you can give it. Either you can give target, source, anything is fine. So now you have a default error out, and click on next, and then finish it. So now let me just open the workflow manager. I think I need to restart the services. Sorry about that. No, for some reason this is not working. Give me a moment. Let me just restart the service and then we'll run it. So I went to services.msc. I think this is some problem with the Informatica configuration. So all the time we receive some license error to use it. So we just need to wait for a moment. Give me a moment and then let's start with the workflow creation. And we'll also understand how to pass the parameter from the session level. So earlier we have created a parameter, but we didn't pass the value from the parameter file. Rather, we have passed the value from the directly we have initialized it from there. Hopefully we should. There is still some issue. So we have this mapping. Now we are going to pass the stable name from the parameter file. So let's define a parameter file. How can we define the parameter file? Let me just show you. Generally, we keep all the parameter files. We keep all the parameter files within the C Informatica 901 server, and then the info shared source files. So generally we keep the parameter file here, and when you are defining it, so you can define this in such a way. So let me just always the parameter file name will be the table folder name underscore the mapping name or the session name, it will be there. So your folder name is edw march tech, edw march tech underscore drop indexes. So just create it. So you can define the parameter at the mapping, session level, as well as this is a .prm file. So just edit it and delete whatever the value that you have. This is a notepad. You can also pass it from the notepad. So when you're using it here, go to the workflow, copy the session name. Whatever the parameter or the variables that you define, it's always a good practice to define at the session level. So enclose the session name within the brackets, square brackets, and the whatever the parameters that you are defined, the spelling should be correct. Otherwise, it will not be able to read it. So we have defined a mapping parameter called as a table name, and here I'm going to pass this as a ODS line item or something. So let me just say we might be having indexes. So I would like to drop the indexes which are there existing on the ODS line item. So this parameter file path you have to provide in the parameter file. Then only integration service can read this value from the parameter file and then pass it. So save it. I've defined my parameter file, and let me just go and then collect that path where it is present. And where can you pass the parameter file? Go to the properties tab. Here in the parameter file, save it, and you also need to give the parameter file name. So when you give the file name, integration service will go and open this file and read. This is a .prm file. It is not a text file. It is a .prm file. So I'll give it as a .prm. So this one, so just apply, and you have see Informatica source files. So this path, it will go there and then read it, and it will pass the table name to the mapping parameter. So I have defined at the session level. Similarly, you can also define at the workflow level. We have a hands-on lab for it. We'll just see how to define the parameters at the workflow level, integration service level, and all those things. So now when I run it, let me just check whether I have indexes on the target table or not. So go here. You have ODS underscore line item, ODS underscore line item. Just edit it, edit the table definition. So here you have indexes. Oops, there are no indexes here. So let me just create some dummy index. I'm creating one index, maybe on one column. So non-unique index I'm creating on the invoice number. So this is the index I'm creating it. So when I run that procedure, it has to drop that index. It has to drop this index, index 1. It has to drop this index so that we can do the bulk load. So let me just, I've created an index. So let me just start the workflow now. So I've passed the ODS underscore line item, and let's check whether this parameter will be passed and what is the source qualifier query is fired by Informatica integration service. So when you open the session log, okay, it's failed. So what is the reason? We might not provided the connection. We don't have even the session log. That's fine. So let me just open the workflow log and verify. Okay, we have not provided the connection for a stored procedure. When I sort it by the severity, see here, stored procedure also you should provide a connection. It is not able to find the $target or a $source connection. So we have to initialize that connection variable. So for a lookup, stored procedure and all, you have to provide the connection. So this is available in the TDBU schema. I have compiled my stored procedure in the TDBU schema. So I have to pass the value target underscore text. So just apply and click on OK. Now when I run it, it has to drop the indexes on that table. So start the workflow. Now go to the workflow monitor. This time it should get succeeded. So get the session log. Okay, keyword is missing. Okay, there is some syntax error. Okay, for a table name, you have passed it as a ODS underscore line item overwritten value. It has used a line item. So what is the problem here is that it is okay. Let's check the query. What is being fired? It is errored out, but what is the reason? So it is using a double quotes. I have used one single quote in the parameter file and one single quote in the query which I have used. That is the reason it is failing. So if you look at here, it is using a double quote here. That's the reason it is failing. So let me just go back to the parameter file and remove the extra added single quote which I have added on the both the sides of it. So let me just delete on this and save this as well. So let's try and run it. So this is error. It was not able to query the data from keyword not found. It has failed with that error. Let me just restart it. Restart the task. We have only one task. Now this time it is succeeded. Open the session log. See here, ODS line item is passed to this from the parameter file, and which parameter file it has used. You can also see the parameter file which it has used. So this is a default error out. It is a target file name, and this is the source qualifier query. Where is the source qualifier query? So this is a source qualifier query which is fired by Informatica to your database, and there is no error returned from the stored procedure. If you have any error, then your session will be failed with that error. Now go back to your this one, refresh the index list. So see here, it is disappeared. So it has dropped the index. So when I sent a ODS line item from this, it has dropped the indexes on this table. So likewise, I've just shown you an example in this hands-on lab how to invoke the stored procedure. Likewise, if you have any stored procedures, you can invoke it from this one. And the stored procedure can also be configured in the normal mode or in the different modes. There are different types of stored procedure execution. One is a target preload, target postload, normal, source preload, and the source postload. So when you keep it as a normal, it will get executed for every source row. It will get executed for every source row. So if your source is returning 100 records, it will get executed for 100 records. And if you are using this one, target preload, means before loading the data into the target, it will execute that. If you keep it as a target post load, after completing the load, it will execute it, source preload and the source post load. Now we have used a source procedure type as a normal, which means for every row returned by the source gets executed, it will get executed. It will get executed. So likewise, this will be there. This will be there to use it. So that's how we use this stored procedure type as a normal and then use it. Stored procedure type is a normal. Normal mode means it will get executed. So likewise, you can use a stored procedure transformation to execute. If you have any other procedure which is created in some other database, it is the same procedure. I mean, same process that you follow to invoke the stored procedure. So what is the advantage of keeping the stored procedure is that you can drop the indexes, recreating the indexes, analyze the tables, truncate. All these things is to improve the performance of your data loading process. Improve the performance of your data loading process. This will be discussed, right? So that's it about the stored procedure transformation. So for a hands-on lab, it uses a different stored procedure altogether. So you can just follow the video and then finish it. And the remaining thing tomorrow we'll talk about slowly changing dimensions. So how to use slowly changing dimensions, and we will talk about, so just recall what we have discussed during the data modeling techniques. So what is an SCD type 1, SCD type 2, SCD type 3, all those things we will load using Informatica. How can we load these things using Informatica? That is what we will discuss it and then close it, right? So any questions now? You can go ahead.